and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and it's been about a month, so we're going to do another edition of Power BI News. And boy, do we have some interesting news. So first off, to start off with, we're going to do this one. This one is, now I covered this before, but it was down at the time when I was covering it because it caused mass confusion, right? So this is PBIR will become the default Power BI report format. Get ready for the transition. So when this came out, it was so poorly worded that it caused a lot of people to believe that the default extension for Power BI, which has always been PBIX, was going to change to PBIR. That is not the case, okay? PBIR is just a different folder structure and file structure within the PBIX file, because a PBIX file is nothing more than a zip file. Same thing with docx and XLSX and all of that. They're just zip files with specific folders and files within them that tell the program, like, what it's supposed to do. Okay, so it's not changing the PBIX file format, right? That is not what this is doing. It's just adding some metadata that's going to be stored within the PBIX file. So it's changing the internal kind of structure of the PBIX file. That's it. Now, you might wonder, well, we're storing more information is going to bloat the size of my PBX file. No, I did some testing on this. Even on like gigabyte sized files, it adds like a few bytes to the thing, right? That's it. So it doesn't really add a lot of data. It doesn't bloat the file data at all. One thing as far as a criticism of this is that they're going to switch to this. My understanding is while PBIR is still in preview, which again, this goes back to Microsoft pushing preview features down everybody's throat. I can't agree with that format. But it sounds like from everything that I can tell is that the general availability for PIPP is planned for 2026, right? And PBR reaches general availability to become the only supported report format. But in the service and that sort of stuff, it's going to be January 26, 2026, right, is when it's going to take effect, which I don't believe the PBR is going to be GA at that point. But I don't know. It seems stupid to me to like push this out as the default file format before the thing is GA. But it's Microsoft, and they want to push preview features down everybody's throat so that you become the unpaid QA tester for them to test their products, because they don't do any testing internally, apparently, at least from the bugs that I've seen come out in Power BI desktop files versions lately. But oh well, there you have it. But just wanted to clear up that misunderstanding with the PBR. It's not going to change to a PBIR extension. All right, bringing context-aware intelligence to Power BI. This is nothing more than a marketing blurb. It's not actual news or anything to really pay attention to, so you can safely skip this article. This is just more kind of the blathering of Microsoft trying to save Power BI in the age of AI that says, oh, semantic models, that's what you want to use, right, for your AI and stuff, even though you can make the argument that you can store semantics anywhere. Like even in JSON files, you don't need to store your semantics and your business logic in proprietary semantic models, right? You can do that in non-proprietary formats. And even at scale, like for example, has an open source, non-proprietary semantic model definition language, essentially. And so one might argue that in the age of AI, where these AI vendors one-up each other every other day, that storing your data and your critical business logic and all that in a proprietary format might not be the best, wisest, soundest decision that anyone has ever made. But you can go hang the noose around your neck, and if you want to do that, that's cool. All right, new card visual in reports. So they finally came out with the new card visual. It's generally available. What I will say about this, and they get all this hero image stuff and everything, but what I will say about this is the good news about this going GA is that they redid the rendering engine and made it much faster. Like when I did my testing with the new card visual versus the old card visuals and that sort of thing, let's just say that the the speed involved, right, was extremely slow. It was the third slowest visual that I tested, right? Almost as slow as Azure Maps and that sort of thing. So they greatly improved the speed. Like before, it was like 16. You needed to do 16 card visuals before you actually became. It became slower than just one card visual of the new card visuals, right? So that was terrible when you consider that those card visuals are rendered serially. Okay, so you had to do 16 of those before it was slower than one new card visual with the old card visual, which is terrible, right? But they improved that. Now it's only like 6 or 7, right? It's only 6 or 7 times as slow as the old card visual. So kudos to them for improving the performance of it before it went to GA. Now, what the bad news about that is actually people that were using the preview feature before it went GA, it jacked up, their visuals essentially. When it went GA, because they changed the rendering engine, a bunch of people's visuals got messed up, which again, not Microsoft's fault. Don't use preview features. Okay, don't use preview features in production reports. It's a bad idea. Now, you can also get your old card visuals back, because what they did, and they didn't tell anybody this, but what they did was they hid these two card visuals, your card visual and your multi-card visual right here and right here. They hid these when this went live. So you can get them back by clicking here and saying restore default visuals, and that will give you your old card visual back and your old multi-card visual back if you still want to use them. So there you go. Okay, moving right along here. TMDL Visual Studio Code Extension is now GA. Nobody really cares about this too much, like percentage wise. This is going to be used by an extremely small percentage of people. Your more tech heavy developers are going to use this primarily. And this is just kind of symptomatic, I think, of most of the things that Power BI desktop is coming out with these days are these very tech heavy developer code centric type of stuff, right? UDFs and TMDL view and DAX query view and all this stuff, right? It seems like Microsoft just kind of abandoned the normal majority of the user base, right? The people that came from Excel trying to use Power BI, right? They just, in the last 2 to 3 years, they've really just seemed to have completely abandoned those people in favor of just releasing features that just an extremely small percentage of people would actually care about. But that's the direction that they've been doing for the last 2.5, 3 years, and I don't see any end to it, to be honest. They don't seem that they're ever going to get back to where they actually value the business users, and actually provide updates and features for business users. They're going to continue to focus on these tech, really developer-centric people, for whatever reason. All right, so next, the image visual enhancements for report creators. Now, this one, a bunch of people oohed and awed over this one. This is just a non-feature for me. I really don't. And I'll tell you why. In 10 years of like helping customers with Power BI reports, developing Power BI reports, and all of that sort of thing, like the most I've ever done on a customer report in terms of images and that sort of stuff is maybe a background image and maybe put their logo up somewhere in the report. That's it, right? I mean, the only time I've gone beyond that really has been when I've done community-based type events, right? So you developed some kind of report for some contest out in the community, like Life in Europe and that sort of stuff, is where I've used images more heavily, right? But that's just not normal in most customers. Most customers could care less about pretty images and that sort of thing. They just want the information. So I don't know. They've got some new features for images, right? Yeehaw. You can do some more formatting stuff in it. Big deal. All right. So anyway, and also they moved this to like where it's like it's not there. Let me go back to they created this so that now you have an image visual. Like you can get to the image visual here versus having to go to view, or sorry, insert and then image. It's the same image visual whether you do it this way or whether you did it over here. What is it? Control 1, just right there. So, yep. So you can get to the image visual here. So big deal. All right. All right, moving right along here. This is the big one, people. Deprecating Power BI Q&A. I have very mixed feelings about all of this. Now, I should start off with saying that the Q&A feature, I think everyone that's in the Power BI community that's like me would tend to agree with this statement. And maybe you won't, and you can leave a comment in the video if you don't agree with this. But the QA feature was like everybody demoed the Q&A feature, right, to customers, right? Nobody used the Q&A feature to any major regard, I guess you could say. Like, I don't know of any customers that I've worked with personally that really use the Q&A feature at all, let alone heavily use the Q&A feature. But it's all going away. And I mean, all of it, right? The Q&A setup, the Q&A visual, double clicking the canvas to get a Q&A visual, Q&A in the dashboards, it's all going away. And it's going away as of December 2026 is when it's finally going to be basically completely retired. So if you're using Q&A, you've got about a year to stop using it. Now, with that being said, it pains me to think about how many hours were spent on the Q&A over the 10 years of its existence, right? So how many thousands of man hours, tens of thousands of man hours, potentially hundreds of thousands of man hours that have gone into Q&A in this feature that could have been in it. It always kind of sucked and nobody would use it. But Microsoft kept pouring more and more development effort into this thing year after year after year, trying to get people to use it. And nobody used it. And I just think about what other features and how much further along the product could be if they would have just given up on Q&A, out of the gate, right? Because it never really worked very well. It was a pain to maintain. It's god awful to a certain degree. And the minute that ChatGPT came out and you could see what an LLM could do in terms of natural language generation and interpreting natural language, it blew the doors off of Q&A looked like Tinker Toys at that point, right? It was comical how bad it was. It always been, we'd always known that it was pretty bad, but when ChatGPT came out, like 3 came out, it was like, oh my God, this is comically bad. So there's that perspective. Then the other perspective that I'll go on here, that is that they're like, well, these are overlapping features. Copilot, right, is what they're replacing this with. We're going to replace this with Copilot. And Q&A, they're really overlapping features. Well, yes and no, right? Because for Copilot, you have to have a fabric capacity, right, for it to work at all. But for Q&A, that was a pro feature, right? You got Q&A just for having a pro license. So it just strikes me that this is Microsoft once again they're jacking up the prices of Microsoft Pro licenses, and then they're taking away features and functionality the whole cost benefit of the license in Power BI continues to decline. And it just makes me wonder about Power BI's kind of future, if you will, in terms of if they keep making it more expensive and they keep taking away features, right, for the pro license, then the cost benefit analysis starts to, people should be starting to look at other tools for this, or, heck, if an AI is the answer, why not just use AI out of the gate, right? Whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude or Plotly Studio, these kinds of alternatives to Power BI, I think start to become more and more attractive. And Microsoft, in a sense, is kind of endorsing that. They're like, no, the future is AI. The future is not the features that are currently built into the product. The future is really just completely an AI world event, at some point. So those are the kind of things that I think about when I see this. But the biggest one, it was just a slap in the forehead of like, I can't think of just how many man hours were put into this feature could have been used in a much better fashion over the course of this last 10 years. It's got to be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hours that were put into this feature. And it's just worthless at this point. It's just gone, right? Crazy to me, but that is how it is, right? And then, yeah, so this is the new, you have to activate this in your preview features. is this is basically, instead of going in and editing your semantic model, your Q&A setup, in order to do things like, your linguistic relationships, synonyms, row labels, all that sort of stuff. You now have to use this prepare your data for AI, which this is a preview feature. You have to turn it on. It shows up on your home tab. So anyway, shows up, yep, prepare data for AI. It's the second to last icon right next to the Copilot icon. And that's how you have to do your semantics and all that sort of stuff now. So there you go. All right, this is the last news article. This is assessing your Azure Data Factory for migration to Fabric Data Factory. So they've come out with this tool. This is more kind of marketing, right? In terms of where there's very little useful information in this article. It basically tells you how to run a migration assessment for your Azure Data Factory to say, can your stuff be moved to Fabric, Fabric Data Factory? Now, the part that I don't see in any of this is they don't give you a cost comparison. In any of this, they don't provide a cost comparison. So they'll tell you if you can move it or if it's going to have problems, right? Or you can't move it quite yet, but they don't tell you how much it's going to cost in one versus the other, right? So that's kind of problematic, I think. But so I did do an analysis on this. So pricing example, because Azure Data Factory has a bunch of these pricing examples out there. So there's a bunch of these out here on Microsoft Learn, and this one is copy data and transform it with Azure Databricks. And so this is, your run pipeline, copy data, execute Databricks activities, and essentially you go through and this scenario costs you $41, right? And they have a bunch of these different scenarios that are out here. So what I did was using a couple articles. So this one, so 262.80 cents per month, per month for an F2 versus 156.334 for reservation. And then also I read through this article and used some information here in terms of like how many CUs per day for an F2 capacity. I did the math on it. And let's see, okay, that's not anything. So I did the math on this and it came out to be that with a non-reservation fabric, right, that the actual CUs concern would cost you $65 for that same scenario. For this one that cost $41 under Azure Data Factory. Now, if you use a reserved capacity for an F2 capacity, it came out to $39 in change, basically. So not a lot of savings, if any savings, really, for doing the migration. So I'm not sure how you do an ROI on this, on that, if you're just trading the same cost or even a higher cost, right, for one to the other. But the real issue, though, is that it doesn't work that way because Fabric is capacity based. So just because you only use $65 worth of CUs for your Fabric, you still have to pay for the $262 that actually cost for for your Fabric capacity and leaving up all month long, or $156 per month. So really that $41, if that's all you're using Azure Data Factory, and it's all you're going to use Fabric for, really it's going to cost 4 to 6 times the cost, right? Because of the way that Fabric works in terms of its capacity, reservations and that sort of thing. So just remember that when you're talking about moving your stuff from Azure Data Factory to Fabric, and is it worth it in terms of cost and ROI and all that sort of stuff. So that is all I have for this episode of Power BI News. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.